they know a bit about, and those who have joined for the first time, I'll keep my introduction for the end. Uh, I would like to start with a brief introduction about this particular topic, that why we have chosen this topic. Actually, the whole idea of these sessions was uh, given by Jitendra sir, and I was also fascinated with the idea. And why Hitler this time? Because we were trying to capture some of those topics which are there in the CBSE books also, and in the same order. So this particular session is inspired, rather the whole series is inspired from class 9 CBSE textbook in history, because if you look at the history syllabus, uh, the same order is there in which we had organized these sessions. There's French Revolution, then there is Russian Revolution, and then there is a chapter on Nazism and Hitler. Now, what is different in this particular session, and which is there in the CBSE book? Uh, this particular session is just to supplement which already exists in the CBSE curriculum, and the whole idea is to tell certain stories which students are not aware, or which are not publicly known as much as Hitler is known. There are other people also who were behind Hitler, and Hitler, what we know or what the world knows, was actually because of those people. So I would like to talk about those people also today who made what Hitler was exactly. Because if those people wouldn't have been there in his life, then the story would have been completely different. Uh, Now, I would like to begin this session by telling you something very brief about Germany. Uh, Germany uh, was not exactly Germany. There were so many principalities, or there were around 300 small kingdoms where people who belonged to German race, or who spoke this common language, they used to live in Europe. Now Napoleon was the one who unified all these 300 principalities into 39 German states in 19th century. And there was this guy which you can see on your screen on the left. His name was Bismarck. He was the one who was responsible for creating a German empire under the leadership of what was to be known as the largest state in the German Federation, that was Prussia. So Bismarck was the one who unified those 39 states into a single
Sir,
federation, and that is somebody speaking something.
hello sir.
Hello.
I am Tanish Malhotra, sir.
Okay. Jitendra sir, can you just take this
Uh,
query?
sure. No, no, actually, just introducing himself.
Okay, and I would request others also to keep their cameras on, so that I have some idea that who is speaking. Okay. Anyway, so I was talking about Bismarck. So Bismarck was the one who actually integrated and unified all these 39 German principalities into a single state, and that happened under the leadership of what was known as Prussia, which became the largest state. Now, Bismarck was the ruler of German Empire from 1870 to 1890. The another person who replaced Bismarck as the emperor, or what we call him as the Kaiser Wilhelm, or if I have to say it in the anglicized tone, he was called as the Kaiser the William. So he became the emperor of Germany. Now there was a stark difference between Bismarck and William. Bismarck wanted to isolate France, which was his staunch enemy during that time. And Bismarck's approach was not imperialist. He wanted to become a major power, but he wanted to isolate France, and he wanted to remain confined to Europe only. But when William came to power, he reversed all the policies of Bismarck. He said that Germany will now have territorial dreams just like other countries were having. England, France, etc., had their colonies all over the world. So William said that from now onwards, we are reversing all the policies of Bismarck. We are going to participate in the world affairs. We will have a navy. We will have territorial expansion. And believe me, that time Germany was second in the world in terms of its production, its industrial production during the time of William. Around the beginning of 20th century, somewhere around 1900 to 1910, Germany was second in almost everything. So when you have large resources, you have big industries. So what do? You need market to sell your products, and you need places to get raw material. So same way, William said that we are going to expand our empire, and we will do that. Ultimately, I will cut the story short. Ultimately, because of his policies, Germany participated in World War along with World War One from 1914 to 1918. And during this time, Germany was completely destroyed. Germany sided with Austria and Ottoman Empire. They were defeated, and against them we had England and France. So this was a brief background about Germany till 1918. Germany was completely destroyed, and Kaiser William fled. He lived a life in exile in Netherlands after the defeat in World War One, and he died at the age of 82 or 83, somewhere around that, and he died in Netherlands. So this was a brief about Germany. Now, when Germany was destroyed in World War One, and it was a struggling country, so what happened? There was an influence of socialism and communism in Europe after the Russian Revolution in 1917. So socialists were really active in Germany, and there was a party called Socialist Democratic Party. And when in January 1919, the National Assembly met at Weimar, and SDP was the largest party, and it formed the government. Now, what happened when Weimar Republic was formed? Germany was referred as Weimar Republic because National Assembly met at Weimar and they formed the republic. Now, alongside what happened, all the leaders of the countries from the winners in the World War One, or what were called as the Allied countries like England, Russia, Italy, and US, they met at Paris, and they wanted revenge from Germany for this war. And they wanted to weaken Germany also, because they never wanted to, have Germany so powerful again at the world stage, because it will harm their territories and their imperial expansions. Now, they forcefully asked Germany to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and we all know what happened in Treaty of Versailles. Those of you who don't know, I have a brief about Treaty of Versailles. These big four players were there, from Great Britain, from France, and from Italy, and from US. Italy was an interesting party here, because Italy initially in the World War One was with Germany, but it changed its side after some time. And you would be surprised to know that again in the World War Two, Italy would side with Germany against France and England, US, and Russia. So these big four players forced German people, the Weimar government, to sign that treaty. And what was there in that treaty? You can see it on the screen. Now, it was a disproportionate treaty in terms of, if we look at from the perspective of Germany. Germany had to leave its so many territories. So much of area of Germany was given to Belgium, and some West Persia was given to Poland. Its army was restricted to 1 lakh. It said, the treaty also said that Germany will not be able to develop any military weapon, no air force, no navy, nothing. And the another important area of Germany, which was industrious, which had so many resources, that was Rhineland. So Rhineland again had to be demilitarized. And as you can see on the screen, the German territories were also divided amongst those winners. And now what happened? Germany was completely shattered, and public actually started blaming the Weimar Republic, the socialist government, the SDP, that they are also responsible for signing this discriminatory treaty. And there was a discontent among people. People were fed up of this Weimar government. Now, what happened? Now the interesting story begins, and the story begins with a person. I'm not going into detail of what was Treaty of Versailles. I'll come back to this again. Now the story begins with this person. I would refer to him as Eckhart. Now Eckhart was an playwright, a journalist, and he was a funny guy, I should say. He was an occultist, what we call in India as tantric kind of a person who believed in some, spiritual or divine powers. And he ran a society called the Thule Society. Now, this Thule Society, not many people know. We all know Nazi. The Nazi idea was the idea of Aryan supremacy, and Hitler was against Jews. But the root cause, what Hitler propagated and advocated, came from the Thule Society. Now, Eckhart was a wealthy person. He used to write poems, and he always used to refer in his poems that there will be a Messiah who will come, and he will save Germany from these harsh conditions. And Eckhart always used to refer Jews and the communists as enemies. Now, one day what happened? There was a meeting of this Thule Society. Later on, he formed a German Worker Party also. So those people met under the banner called German Worker Party. And Hitler was sent there to spy on the activities of German Workers' Party. And he was taking in his notes when he came across the ideas of those people, especially the Eckhart. Hitler was so influenced that he left his job of spy and he started talking to these people. And this was the moment. The beer hall meeting between Eckhart and Hitler was so instrumental that day that it changed the course of history. If Hitler wouldn't have been there in that beer hall, things would have been completely different, or I should say, history would have been completely different. Now, after that meeting, Eckhart became a mentor to Hitler, and he taught Hitler the basic manners of interacting with elite. He was the one who used to write speeches for Hitler initially. He taught him how to speak influentially in the public, and he was like a godfather to Hitler during that time. And you would be surprised to know that Eckhart was the first one who was sidelined by Hitler after a few years. Anyway, he was the first person who was actually a mentor, or I should say, who was the foundation of Hitler's what we call inner circle. Now, another person which came or which was, which was inspired by Hitler so much that he literally fell in love with Hitler. His name was Rudolf Hess. And one interesting fact about him is that he was the last prominent Nazi to die. He died in 1987. He hanged himself in the prison. Now, he was impressed by Hitler so much that he became a shadow of Hitler. And when Hitler was in jail after 1923, he spent his time with Hitler in his cell in the jail, and he was the one who motivated Hitler to write his story so that he can advocate his thoughts to normal people. And the Hitler's most famous book, that is the Mein Kampf. If I translate it into English, it says the My Struggle. It was written in jail, and Rudolf Hess was responsible for motivating, actually motivating Hitler to write this book. And he was the one who actually edited the book and actually typed the book in the jail. And he was the one who gave this whole idea to Hitler that you are the Führer, means the supreme leader or the ultimate leader. And later on during the World War II, you would be surprised to know that he flew in a plane from Germany to Scotland, crash landed his plane, and he went there with an objective that, I want to meet the Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of UK at that time, and I want to have a peace with the Allied forces. Later on, he was imprisoned by England, and after the World War II ended, he was convicted in the Nuremberg trials, and he was sentenced to life. So he was another person from Hitler's inner circle who was really instrumental in motivating Hitler. The third important person was Hermann Goring. Now, he was an ace pilot from World War One. He was also disappointed with Germany's defeat, and he was a kind of a person with full of attitude because he was a winner of Blue Max. Blue Max was the honorary title, one of the highest civilian honors that was given during the time of William Kaiser. And after the World War One, he flew to Austria, but he again came back and he built the Nazi Air Force because he was a pilot and he knew how to administer and how to rebuild a force. And he was the one who later became the head of the largest state of Germany, that was Prussia. And he was the only among the two-person from the Hitler's inner circle who survived. And during the Nuremberg trials, he pleaded not guilty. And if you look at the videos of Nuremberg trials in YouTube, you would say he was so confident when he was being tried for his crimes against humanity. He said that I am standing in this court because I have lost the war. If I would have won the war, you people would have been there at my place. So he said, I am not guilty of whatever I have done to Jews or during the Nazi regime. And he was sentenced to death. He was about to be hanged, but a soldier who was loyal to him smuggled a cyanide capsule to him, and he committed suicide in the jail. Now, this was very interesting personality that is known as the Joseph Goebbels. He was the propaganda minister. Before becoming the propaganda minister, he was a journalist, or I should say a frustrated journalist, because he was also frustrated because of the growing influence of communism in Germany. And he also shared the anti-Semitic ideas that Jews are responsible for Germany's defeat. And he was one man army for Hitler. You would be surprised to know that his devotion was so much towards Hitler that he committed suicide. He poisoned his children in the bunker when he was staying with Hitler in the secret bunker in Berlin. He shot his wife also and shot himself because he believed that there was no future without Hitler, because his life was all about devotion. And he was the one who always helped Hitler in creating propaganda and creating stories which were instrumental. Even when Nazis were at the retreat during the World War II, it was Goebbels who was responsible for advocating the propaganda that we are winning the war, or we are the best, German race is the best. So I should call him, in India, if I have to compare, he was like all media channels in one. He was like a one man army. He controlled everything from radio to TV, to films, etc. And he was the one who glorified Hitler like anything. Now, this is the most important person. Whenever we talk about Hitler, we always talk about the Holocaust and the crime that Hitler committed against humanity, particularly against Jews. If I have to name one person who was responsible for the most horrific crimes against humanity of in 20th century, it is this person that you can see on the screen. His name is Heinrich Himmler. Now, he was also a frustrated soldier because he could not participate in the World War One because he was not 18 that time, and he also believed in the idea that German race is the superior race. He was the founder of SS, which was a military kind of an organization, and he also founded Gestapo. Sorry, I did a spelling mistake here. Gestapo was a secret intelligence kind of a unit. And later on, he orchestrated, along with his deputy, and his name was Heydrich, the project of Final Solution. Now, if you look at the whole propaganda of Hitler, they never use bad words. The final solution meant that the eradication of Jews from the world, and he was the one who, orchestrated the whole idea of gas chambers. And you would be surprised to know that when he realized that Germany is going to be defeated in the World War II, he ran for his life. He broke some secret deals with Red Cross, and he said that, I will give you Jews, but you leave me for all my crimes. I should not be accused of any crime against the Jews, and in return I will hand over all the Jews. But later on he was caught, but he committed suicide by eating a cyanide capsule. I think Muskan has raised a hand here. Yes, please. Sir, I think somebody wants to ask any question, or
I think they can unmute themselves.
Sir, what is Jew?
what?
What is Jews?
Okay, Jew. I forgot that. I assume that everybody knows what is Jew. Actually, Jew is a community of people who believes in Judaism, and Judaism is a religion. If you know about a country called Israel, Israel is a country of Jews. Okay, Judaism is one of the important religion in the world, and the followers of Judaism are called as Jews. Okay.
Okay.
Another person who was responsible for committing crime against humanity was Martin Bormann. Bormann was not actually responsible for anything against Jews, but he was very influential because he became a shadow of Hitler, or he was a personal secretary for a very longer period of time. And it is interesting to know that Martin Bormann was simply a normal contractor who was given, a charge to build Hitler's winter home. So Hitler was impressed by Martin Bormann, and he became a shadow, and he had so much of influence on Hitler that he was responsible for the downfall of many of the people in Hitler's inner circle. Now, these were the few important people I have noted down. There were few more, but I feel these five people were the one which were very much influential in Hitler's inner circle. And from 1920 onwards till the downfall of Nazis in 1945, these people, especially these five, were always looking to impress Hitler, and and in their effort to always impress Hitler, they always committed some blunders, and I don't want to go into that. Anyway, now coming back to the Germany of 1920s. Now, Treaty of Versailles was there. Germany was in big economic problem, and Germany started borrowing loans from US, and they had to give around 6,600 million pounds in war reparations back to the allied countries. And what they did, they started borrowing loans from Germany, and they had to give their gold reserves to these countries, and they started printing more money during that time. And what happened? Germany's economy suddenly collapsed, and it went into a hyperinflation, and people started blaming again the Weimar. And during this particular time, Nazis became really strong, and they built a party, and the party's name was the Germany's Worker Party. And Nazi was the name which was adopted later on, and before that it was the Germans' Worker Party. And what happened? They started reorchestrating their party. They adopted a new symbol, they adopted a new slogan, that Awake Germany, and they started rebranding their whole party, and they came up with their own ideology, that was the Nationalist Socialism. And the Goebbels was there. Joseph Goebbels came into picture, and he was the one who started reviving the Nazi party. They brought back a newspaper, and Hitler started believing that he's the divine, he's the Messiah, and he needs to overthrow this Weimar Republic, and he needs to take power. Now, what happens? Before Hitler, there was an attempt to overthrow the Weimar Republic in 1920, and in 1923 Hitler again tries to overthrow the Weimar government. And what happened? He was captured after that putsch. Now, putsch is the German word for the coup, the military coup, and Hitler was captured and he was sent to jail. Now, when he spent his time in jail, he went through a lot of transformation, and that transformation was very important. One, he was inspired by the person named Hess, Rudolf Hess, who inspired him to write his book. That was his struggle. Plus, while spending his time in jail, Hitler realized one very important thing. He said that I should not capture power through force. I should fight elections, and then I should become the legitimate legitimate person, and I should capture power through legitimate means. Now, when he came out, he was sentenced in prison for 5 years, but later on his sentence was commuted, and he was released after 9 months in prison. Now, when he came out, he was banned he was not allowed to speak. He was officially and legally banned to speak publicly. Plus, he was banned to contest elections also till 1927. But when he came out, he was convinced that he needs to fight. Why he was convinced? Because he knew that he had good oratory skills. He was a very good orator. He could simply play with the emotions of people, and he was of the opinion that German people needs food and work, because unemployment was very high. The hyperinflation was too much, that a simple bread would cost you around trillions, because people had lost all of their savings. And he was the one who believed that I can materialize all the crises in his favor, or in the favor of Nazi party, once he was out of the prison. Now, they fought elections, and you would be surprised to know that Nazi party lost elections. When they fought their first election, they could only garner 3% of vote, because of course they were influential, they could play with the emotions of people, but people were not so convinced, because Germany was now around 1924, though Germany was in crisis, but people were not so convinced with his ideas. He said, okay, fine, I will come back again. And in 1928 elections, after 4.5 years, they campaigned vigorously again, but it was a disaster again, because they could only get 2.4% of votes. But one interesting thing that happened was they could manage to get 12 seats in the Reichstag. Reichstag was the parliament of Germany. Now, if I have to say, the whole life of history, the whole life of Hitler was based on miracles, uh, uh, or his whole life was based on miraculous crisis. First miracle happened when Hitler met Eckhart in that beer hall, and second miracle happened when the economy was hit. The world economy was hit. The Great Depression came in 1929. The US economy was crashed. And what US did? US started demanding their loans from Germany. They said that whatever loan we have given you, we need that back, or otherwise you need to give your gold, or we don't know, we will charge you more interest. And now it was the opportunity that Hitler wanted to materialize, and he said that this is the time. And again, the government was collapsed. Germany had elections in 1930s, and during that time they campaigned so vigorously that from 12 they were able to get 107 seats in the parliament, and they were the second largest party in German Reichstag. Now, how did they do that? This, as you can see, during 1929, he promised that the capitalist people will get protection from the communists. He promised farmers that you will get the market, I will capture all the areas, you will have everything, bigger market, to sell your products. And Germany, after the Treaty of Versailles, was suffering from a guilt. So he said that I will restore your lost pride. And he said, I will give you jobs, I'll give you food. So he promised everything what a single German was looking for. And when he played with his emotion, he was able to come back to power. And by 1930, he was the second largest party in parliament. That was a very big thing. Now, in 1933, Germany again went to a political crisis, and there he wanted to consolidate his power, and Germany went to elections. And now Hitler was the prime minister. He became the chancellor. He convinced the president of Germany that I should be, be made the chancellor or the prime minister of Germany. But he was not so strong. He was again looking for a crisis, and the crisis came in the form of Reichstag fire. So parliament of Germany caught a fire, and this was his opportunity to destroy the opposition and communists. So he blamed the communists for the fire, and he said that from today onwards, I am banning all the opposition parties. Civil liberties were suspended. The Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution was come into picture, and he said that from now onwards the lawmaking authority from parliament is being transferred to Hitler or his cabinet, and he centralized the whole administration by 1934. Now, the year which I have written here in the last 1930, it's not 1930, it's 1934 actually. So it's in 1934, another miracle happened. That was the death of the president of Germany. President died, and Hitler merged the post of president and chancellor, and he became the Führer, the supreme leader. Now Hitler felt that nothing could, stop me from bringing my dream project or from eliminating the Jews. and he began his changes. Now, the first change was the social change. What he did, he started eliminating Jews through his concentration camps all over the area which was captured by Germany, whether it was Austria, whether it was Poland, whether it was Czechoslovakia. So not only Jews, they they managed to do the crimes against the gypsies or other inferior people, disabled. They believed that nobody had right to live only except the superior German race. And what else he did in terms of the social change? He controlled the whole education. The whole education system in Germany was revived, and it glorified Hitler. In the schools also, people were segregated on the basis of their race. Germans were not allowed to sit with Jews or other inferior people, and women of Germany were also not allowed to make any contacts with other races, especially Jews, and they were punished. And his whole idea was to emphasize on the he did what he was not supposed to do as per the Versailles Treaty. He started rapid militarization of Germany, rapid industrialization. The Rhineland, the resource-rich area, which was not supposed to be remilitarized, which was not supposed to be militarized, he captured that area forcefully and he remilitarized. He started 4-year plans, and there was one person in Hitler's inner circle I forgot to mention, and his name was Speer. So Speer was the one who was responsible for the domestic production. He became the production minister, though he was an architect. So he was doing everything which he was not supposed to do. And when it came to foreign policy, he defied the Treaty of Versailles. And this was very interesting. He said that Germany is not only limited to what we have. Germany is wherever Germans are living in Europe, whether it is Austria, whether it is Norway, whether it is Belgium, Netherlands, Poland. So he kept on capturing all those areas because he believed in the idea of living space. Lebensraum was his theory of living space. So he said that Germans need some special, Germans need some special area to live. Not only special, rather sufficient living space, and Germany should be expanded. He captured Austria, then he captured Sunderland from Czechoslovakia, he captured parts of Norway, Belgium, and he captured ultimately Poland. When he captured Poland, then world leaders believed that now it is the time for us to stop Hitler, and he signed pacts with the other dictator in the world. He signed pact with Mussolini of Italy. He signed the pact with the Emperor of Japan also, and he was also supporting other dictators. Especially, he supported not German. He supported the dictator Franco of Spain. And he said that dictatorship is more important than democracy. Democracy is a flawed idea. And he also left another organization that was the League of Nations, and he reintroduced that was known as the compulsory military service. Every youth in the country was supposed to do some sort of military service that was compulsory. Now, when Britain and Poland when Poland was attacked, then Britain and France realized that they cannot ignore the actions of Hitler, and finally they declared the war against Hitler. And this was the time in 1939 when World War II began, and from 1939 to 1945, Hitler and his associates committed the most horrific crimes against humanity, and I don't want to go into detail. And since Sir had given me time of 40 minutes, so this is how Hitler rose to power. And these are the references that I have used. If you want to know more about whatever I've spoken, so there is this book called The Devil's Disciples. It's available on Amazon, but I will not recommend you to buy this book because it's a very costly book. It comes in thousands of rupees. But you can, of course, watch this web series which is available on Netflix. That is called the Hitler Circle of Evil. So you will get some idea of the crimes that Hitler had committed. So this is a brief introduction about the rise of Hitler and how he came to power. And now, if somebody has any question, they can ask me. And of course, I had kept my introduction also for the end. So my name is Ashish. For those of you who don't know, and I am a graduate from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and I hold an additional degree in urban development and planning, second masters. And after passing out, I joined National Career Service, and I was working in Ministry of Labor, or I was deputed in Ministry of Labor. But I left that job because I was interested in some other things, and then I joined Delhi Public School. I was teaching there for last 4 years, and recently I have moved on to my further studies. I'm planning to do my doctorate, and apart from that, I have recently founded an institute called the Center for Political Excellence, where I'm training the school students for their curriculum. And apart from that, I have also developed my own curriculum. And recently, I have finished my first batch of students in last 3 months from April to June. So this is my brief introduction, sir.
Thank you so much, Ashish sir. Okay, any student, like if you have any query, any question you have, you can ask now.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
May I ask one question?
Yes, please.
Why do you think such horrific crimes were committed against Jews? Like, what was their fault? Why such thing happened that, nobody in the world raised their voice against it and Hitler kept it in wraps? What was the reason?
One reason was German people were made to believe that Jews were inferior through Hitler's propaganda. Second, these horrific crimes that were committed because Germans believed that Jews are responsible for their defeat in the World War I. Plus, they also believed, I mean, of course, Nazis believed in these pseudo ideas, but they also convinced German people that, Jews are responsible for their downfall, for their lost glory, and they are the ones who control all the property, all the wealth, and their wealth should be transferred to German people. So, through their propaganda, Germans were convinced in believing that Jews are responsible for everything that has happened with Germany.
Excuse me,
Thank
sir.
you.
Fine. Okay, thank you so much, Ashish sir, once again. And we are looking forward to have such sessions again.
Thank you, sir.
As we have discussed, it's an announcement for everybody. We are going to have another session with Ashish sir. That the topic is American presidential election process, right? And the date is 15th of July. The timing would remain the same, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. So if you are interested to join the next session also, please register there. The link is already there on the website, fltcc.in. Okay, FLT, foreign language
It's
training,
written, sir.
which is mentioned there on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, it's there on the screen. Yeah, fltcc.in.
So I'll give a brief introduction about the next topic. Actually, America's political system is a bit different from India. In India, our president is indirectly elected by the people. Rather, we elect our prime minister, but America elects its president directly. So, what is the process of electing the president in America? So, I will be talking about that. and we have designed this session specially for middle school and primary social sciences teachers up to 10th. So if you, if you are interested, you can call your teachers also, because this session was primarily designed by us for the teachers of middle school, especially the social sciences teachers, the TGTs which are teaching in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Fine. Okay. So please, you can just share the information with your friends and the teachers as well, right? Thank you so much, Ashish.
Thank you,
sir. I
sir.
think we should wind up now.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
it's
sir.
5:51 now. Okay. So who are interested to join the next session, please register there. Right? Thank you so much, Ashish.
Thank you, sir.